Hey everyone, Suresh here from SK Talks Games, and in this video, I'm going to showcase the Xbox full screen experience on the ROG Ally X. Not the ROG Xbox Ally X, just the normal ROG Ally X, and great naming system, Xbox and Asus by the way, it's not confusing at all. Anyways, the Xbox full screen experience is Microsoft's solution for gaming Windows handhelds. It disables a lot of Windows background tasks that aren't needed for gaming, which should make more headroom for better performance in games. It also makes it easier to navigate menus and access your games by just using the controller or touchscreen, which is also great. And don't worry, you won't be limited to playing only Xbox games. You're going to have full access to your Steam games or really any other PC platform. A good comparison is SteamOS on Steam Deck, where you can easily access your Steam library using a nicely designed console-like system. And if you like, you can also access the full desktop version as well. So the Xbox full screen experience gives you the same ability, except you're no longer limited to Linux. You can have full access to Windows 11 desktop if you need it. I mean, I'd say overall, it's a good update for Windows gaming handhelds. It's not perfect, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And my hope is that it will get better with every update. Now, this is a feature that should come pre-installed with the new Xbox ROG Ally and the Ally X. So if you've got one of these ones, you should already have access to it. But it is eventually going to come to all PCs running Windows 11, and you can get access to it right now if you sign up to the Windows Insider program. I'm not going to get too deep into the details of how to enable this update because it's going to become irrelevant in the future, and I think it's just going to make things confusing. I'll put a link to a guide on how to do this in depth down in the description. I'm also going to pin it to the top of the comment section so you'll be able to find them right under the like and subscribe buttons. You're also going to find a link to my written guide on this very topic. So if you prefer to read it, you can find it. It's a link to my Patreon. It's completely free of charge. So yeah, you'll find all of that down in the description and pinned to the top of the comment section. And just before you run off to update your device and everything, just please make sure to back up any important files and documents. You're going to be using a beta version of Windows, and there's always a chance of losing everything. You might even see glitches happening in this very video because I am using the beta version. So just be mindful that, yeah, this is in the final release and things might break. But essentially, you're going to need to sign up to the Windows Insider program, which is Microsoft's beta testing program, and choose an Insider channel. I've heard the release and beta channels have the update and will enable the full screen experience, but I picked the dev channel just to be sure. So once you pick the channel, run Windows updates to get the latest Windows build, then update Armoury Crate, and also make sure to run updates through the My ASUS app as well, and don't forget to update everything through the Microsoft Store app too. So basically just make sure to take your time and yeah, update all the things. When everything is updated, reboot your system, then open settings and go to gaming. You're looking for the full screen experience option. If you don't see it, you're going to need to download a program called Vivetool from its GitHub page. You're going to find a link to it in the guide that I mentioned before, so it's going to be down in the description. So follow the instructions in the guide to force enable full screen experience on Windows. Once you get access to this option, choose Xbox as your home app and make sure to turn on Enter Full Screen Experience on startup. Reboot your device and you should go straight into full screen experience. Now that you have access to the full screen experience, we can talk about how it works on the ROG Ally X. All right, the focus of this guide is to show you how to navigate different parts of the Xbox full screen experience on the ROG Ally X. There are always multiple ways of achieving the same thing depending on where you are and what you're doing. Along the way, I'm also going to explain how different features work and how you can customize your experience to what you like. I'm going to cover the Xbox app first, followed by Command Center, and then finally we're going to talk about Armoury Crate. So first, let's talk about the newly updated Xbox app. The most basic and I think important operation is that at any point, you can swipe up from the bottom of the screen to bring up Task View to see which apps are running and navigate between them. If you've just booted into the Xbox full screen experience, then you should really only see two apps right now, that be the Xbox app and the Armoury Crate. You'll find them at the top of the screen and you can navigate using your fingers or you can use the right and left bumper. At the moment, the right bumper for me is for some reason working as the select button. So I can only use the left bumper in task view to navigate between different apps. I did mention it wasn't going to be perfect, so this is the first glitch that I was sort of anticipating was going to come up here. In any case, at the bottom of task view screen, you're going to see two tabs. The first one is Xbox full screen experience, and to its right is Windows desktop. If you tap on Windows desktop, it's going to take you out of full screen experience and into Windows desktop mode, which is just the normal Windows we're all familiar with. So if you need to, for example, run Windows updates or, tweaking settings around or something like that, this is how you do it. I'm going to tap A on Xbox and go back to the Xbox app. Here I can use the D-pad or the left joystick to navigate through the different parts of the main page here. For me, you can see at the very top in the jump back in section, I have access to my recently played games, and the rest of the page is really just about new games that have just come out through Xbox Game Pass, and really generally speaking more information about Game Pass. While I'm on the main page, I can press Y to activate the search bar, and automatically the keyboard will also come up, so I can start searching for games. So for example, if I put in Silk Song and tap enter, I'll get some results to do with Silk Song. The limitation that I've found so far when it comes to searching through this Xbox app is that it's only limited to searching the Xbox Game Pass database. So it's not going to show you your games through other PC platforms and storefronts. I know the GOG Galaxy launcher does this really well. So if you link other storefronts to it, you can search through them using the same app with the GOG launcher, but that's not possible with Xbox right now. So hopefully with an update in the future, we can also search through other storefronts as well. The annoying part is that even if I've got games installed on my Ally X and I search for them here, they're not going to show up in search. So yeah, it's just a bit annoying, and it's just something to keep in mind. Anyways, I want to go back to the home screen. So just tap on the home icon that's just in the top left corner here in the toolbar, and you'll be taken back to the home screen. Speaking of the toolbar on the left-hand side, let's go through it, shall we? So the first one is your profile. You can just tap on it, or if you want to use the D-pad to get to it and tap A, you can do that too. You can then go into your Xbox profile or manage your Xbox Game Pass subscription. You can check out your Microsoft rewards. You can have a look through Xbox Insider program settings. There's some more settings that we're going to talk about in a minute here. Support and feedback, pretty self-explanatory. You can also go into appear offline to change how you appear to your friends online. And lastly, you can also sign out. So most of these options are pretty straightforward. What I want to focus on here is settings, so let's do that. Now, if you've ever used the Xbox app on PC before, this is going to look very familiar. I mean, the Xbox full screen experience is essentially the Xbox app, just expanded in its functionality to take over Windows and create a more gaming friendly experience. Anyways, account is the first one. So here, if you want to change your gamer tag, you can do that. If you've got an Xbox code or Microsoft Store code, you can redeem it here. You got access to your linked accounts. So if you've got other storefronts that you've linked to your Xbox PC app, you can do that here, or you can unlink it. This has got nothing to do with actually being able to access your games through other storefronts. This is basically just to be able to connect with your friends across other social networks. So just keep that in mind. It's not something you have to do. It's just there just to make things a little bit easier, I guess. Next, we have privacy settings. So if you tap on manage, you get more information to do with your privacy settings. But one option that you can easily change here is allowing others to see your PC game activity. Depending on what you want and what you're comfortable with, you can either allow or disallow it or block it. They call it block. At the very bottom, you got access to your purchase sign-in settings. So for example, if you want to buy games through the Microsoft Store without having to put in your password every single time, you can enable this. It just makes checkout a little bit faster. So again, you can play around with this and pick the option that you want. Next, we're going to go into app settings. Under general, we've got compact mode, and it should already be enabled when you go into it the first time. Now, this is for changing the way the Xbox app looks in full screen experience. So you can see when I disable this, the general look and feel of the app just changes a little bit. So yeah, you can see I'm still on the home screen, the very first page of the Xbox app, but instead of having my games sort of in the middle of the screen, they've now moved to the side under the toolbar. They've just sort of come up as a list. You still have access to your D-pad and everything like that. You can still use your touch and everything, so that doesn't really change anything. I feel like it just makes things a little bit larger, which might be better for some people. I personally prefer to have compact mode enabled when I'm using the Xbox full screen experience, so I'm going to go ahead and enable it. Now, before we move on from this and talk about the next part, which is startup, I want to mention that there is another setting called compact mode that is found under settings in Command Center. These are two different settings affecting two different parts of the full screen experience. We can all thank Microsoft and Xbox for being amazing at naming their products and features, so everything makes perfect sense and nothing is confusing. Anyways, back in the Xbox app settings, we can also adjust some of the startup options, although they're fairly limited. You're going to notice a blue box that says startup options are disabled because we're in full screen experience. So if you want more control, you're going to need to tap on Open Windows Settings, which will take you into Settings. Under the blue box, you have three settings. One is for launching into full screen mode when the device is turned on, which I recommend you keep enabled. The other two settings are for Windows desktop mode. The first one launches the Xbox app minimized to the system tray, and the third one puts the Xbox app in the system tray when it's closed. I don't understand why we need access to these two settings when we're in Xbox full screen. Doesn't matter. I have them all enabled, so you decide what you want to do. The rest of the options in app settings are for sharing your data and giving feedback to Microsoft, plus some language and region settings, which can all be changed by tapping on the links that you find on your screen here. The next tab is subscriptions. This is for managing your Xbox Game Pass subscriptions. Notifications are pretty self-explanatory. I've enabled everything, but you do what you like. Install options is next. This is where you tell the system where to install your games. So if you have a micro SD card in your Ally X, you can tell Windows to install your games there. Just remember this is only for Microsoft Store, so games that you download and install through Microsoft, these settings only apply to those games. So for example, if you want to have Steam also download and install your games onto the SD card, you're going to have to go into Steam settings and change that there. Anyways, you might even have an external SSD attached to your Ally X if it's docked. So yeah, this is where you tell the system where to install your games by default. You can also play around with update settings, and so things like automatic updates and enabling or disabling downloads and updates during gameplay. Library and extensions is the next part. This page shows you which PC platforms and storefronts are currently connected to Xbox full screen experience. You can see for me, I have GOG Galaxy and Steam enabled at the moment. These are the two storefronts that I've downloaded games through and installed them on my ROG Ally X. We can add more storefronts, and I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. There are also extension management settings, and right now I don't have any of them and I don't know how to get them. You can also choose whether you want to show other storefront apps by enabling display my apps in library. I have mine enabled because it's pretty helpful. Again, I'll show you all of this stuff a little bit later in more detail. Next, we have audio settings. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory. Again, you can set things up to your liking. One suggestion for me though, please turn on push to talk. You don't want to be that guy. Next, we have access to cloud gaming settings. If you're someone who uses cloud gaming, you want to spend a bit of time here to see if there are any things you might want to tweak. There's some decent accessibility and options here, which some people may find helpful. A bit further down under default streaming provider, you can even change the default cloud gaming service. So you're not just limited to Game Pass, you can also set NVIDIA GeForce Now as your cloud gaming provider. The last option is keyboard shortcuts. You can set which key enables or disables the use of a mouse in game while streaming. Next, we have some more accessibility settings. You can change things like showing themes on profile, showing videos on hover, disabling background images, disabling animation, and showing accessibility features on game card hover. Then there are some more settings down the bottom which you can access by tapping on the links. There is a lot of things going on here, so if there's something here that you think might help you have a nicer, better experience while using the Xbox full screen experience, make sure to spend a bit of time here and go through it and see what's available to you. The last tab is the About page, which gives you details about the Xbox app version you're using and some other insider options. So that's about everything to do with the Xbox app settings. We're going to tap on X to get out of it. And let's continue going through the toolbar on the left-hand side. The next icon you got under your profile is the home button, which we discussed earlier. If you tap on it, it's going to take you back to the home screen from anywhere within the Xbox app. The one under the home button is for Game Pass. This is a super helpful tab if you are a Game Pass subscriber. You can have a look through it to see what games they have on offer right now, what games have just come out, and you can go into different games and install them and play them, whatever you want. Next is my library. Now, things are a bit more interesting here because this is where you can access games that you have installed on your device through other PC storefronts and platforms such as Steam. You can see by default, it's going to show all the games that I've got installed on my ROG Ally X, irrelevant of the storefront that it's come from. But I can also change things around. So for example, if I tap on all games here, I can change it to Steam games and change it so it only shows games that I've got installed through Steam. I can then maybe tap on GOG Galaxy games and have a look at those games as well. If I go into Xbox games, you can see there's a lot of games that have come up, but the tricky part here is that you need to have a look at the row underneath these bars. So if I tap on install, nothing should show up because I don't have any games installed on my device through Xbox Game Pass or Microsoft Store for that matter. I can get out of that. I can say, show me games that aren't in Game Pass. I can change it to cloud playable. This is really helpful for people who are subscribed to Game Pass, but I'm not one of those people. So let's switch to Steam games. Here, my options are a little bit limited. Maybe with a feature update, things can change a little bit, but you can still do a few different things. For example, if I tap on filter, I can change it to which drive I want to access. So if I was someone who had a micro SD card in my ROG Ally X and I had games on it, I can change the drive here to that one. But if I go back to all games and tap on install, then I'm going to get access to all the games that are currently installed on my Xbox, not Xbox, on my ROG Ally X, irrelevant of the storefront. One thing that I would really like to see here is being able to see my recently played games. I know we have access to that when we go back to the home screen, but it'd be nice to have that under my library as well. In any case, you can also launch your games directly from here. So if I tap on Ball Pit, for example, a game that I own through Steam, you can see it's going to take me to another page. And when I tap on play, my Ally X will launch Steam and then Ball Pit. It might just take a little while, so you just have to be a little bit patient. Once I'm in game, I can bring up task view by swiping up from the bottom of the screen. You can see I now have more apps at the top. For example, I can navigate to Steam's special offers and close it by tapping the top right corner. I know there is an option that says press X to close it, but it doesn't work right now. Again, another glitch that's currently not working, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, I can keep navigating different apps through task view. And for example, I can go into Steam and start looking through Steam right here. I can also just go back to the Xbox app by tapping on it and then tapping on it again. Pretty easy to use. I'm going to exit out of Ball Pit and Steam and go back to the Xbox app. So this was all under my Games tab. If we tap on my apps, you can see a range of other apps that can be accessed using the Xbox full screen experience. You'll notice some of them are already installed, like Armoury Crate and Steam, and there are some that say download now. So yeah, if you want to download Battle.net, for instance, you don't need to leave the full screen experience. You can just tap it and the system will download and install it for you. Very nice. You can also, of course, launch different apps while you're here. This isn't going to take you out of the Xbox full screen experience. It's only going to launch the app. If you want to go into another app, you can use Task Viewer to do that. Now, what I like about this is that I can still use something like Steam Big Picture mode if I want to. I haven't been able to figure out how to set up the Xbox button in Steam Big Picture mode yet, so that's the only limitation at the moment. I've set up a shortcut for the Xbox button, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but that doesn't work in big picture mode. Let me know in the comments if you have a solution for this. Now, something I've noticed here is that not every app that you have installed on your ROG Ally X or your PC for that matter shows up here. For instance, I can see Firefox, which is my browser of choice. It's visible here and I can go into it if I want to. But other apps, even gaming related apps, I don't have all of them show up. For example, I use an app called PX Play to stream my games from my PS5 to my Ally X. A super awesome app, by the way. It's not free, but if you own a PS5 and an Ally X, or really any Windows handheld, I highly recommend it. So yeah, this is an app that's definitely installed on my Ally X, and you can see it's running, but it doesn't show up under my apps in full screen experience. I can't figure out a way to add it in manually either, so yeah, if you know something about this, please let me know. The next tab is the Play Later tab. I remember this being a feature on Game Pass where you can basically tag games so you can play them later. Sort of like a playlist. As you can see, my list has only got one game on it. I don't even know how to get rid of it, but this must be from back when I used to have a Game Pass subscription. It would be awesome if they could extend this feature to other games as well. Next is Play History. Again, another glitch alert. This isn't accurate because the last game that I just launched right now while filming this video is Ball Pit, but you can see it's nowhere to be seen here. So yeah, a little bit glitchy, but something to work with. Another thing I've noticed here is that if I tap on a game, say for example Hollow Knight Silk Song, it's not gonna take me to the Steam version that I used to play my game. It takes me to the Microsoft Store version. It's kind of wanting me to buy it. It's like, man, I already own this game on Steam. You know it's already installed on my Ally X. Why are you doing this? Just take me to where I want to go so I can play my game. The last tab here is Install Queue, and in my experience, it only works with Game Pass games and Microsoft Store games. So if you're downloading games through other storefronts, you're not going to see the progress here. So that's pretty much everything to do with the My Library tab. Next, we'll move to cloud gaming. If you have a Game Pass or NVIDIA GeForce Now subscription, this is where you're going to be able to access and launch your games and stream them. It's pretty straightforward stuff here. I unfortunately don't have a subscription to either of those services, so I can't showcase how they work here, but for those of you who do have that subscription, you can go through it and have a look at the games and things that they've got on offer, and you can, pretty straightforward. You can launch your games from here, and yeah, that's about it. The next tab that we're going to look at is the Microsoft Store tab. Now, this is pretty straightforward. This is Microsoft's storefront. You can buy games here and pay for it and download it and all of that. I want to mention one thing here though. Before buying a game, pay attention to its handheld compatibility rating. So there's going to be a little icon right under the name of the game that you're looking at. So for instance, I'm looking at Silksong, and you can see there are some compatibility metrics that tell me the game will perform great on my device and that it is handheld optimized. If we go down a little bit more on the same page, there'll be a handheld compatibility box, which gives you more details about how the game will run on your handheld. So tap on more details and make sure you're comfortable with how compatible or well optimized the game is before you buy it. They even have like a handheld optimized game section here called the features section. You can have a look at handheld optimized games through Xbox Game Pass. So, make sure you go through it and see if there's anything you like. You can buy it here. Next is the Friends tab. You can see your friends list here, and if you want to start a party, you can do that from here. You can add friends, remove them, block them, whatever you want to do in terms of social stuff is here. You can tap on the three dots in the top right corner and get even more options. So feel free to play around with this as much as you need. The next step is for notifications, and this is where you get updates on games getting announced or updates or whatever. You can toggle on the show unread only option here to declutter things a little bit. If you tap the three dots and then mark all as read, you can get rid of everything in one go. And also if you tap on the three dots again and go into settings, it will take you back into the notification settings that we talked about previously. And finally, the last tab, the install queue. If you tap it, it will take you back to the install queue tab that we saw before under my library. Same thing. Now, just a couple of things before we wrap up the Xbox apps section. If you swipe left from the right side of the screen, you get access to your Windows notifications. And if you swipe right from the left side of the screen, you'll get access to Command Center and Xbox Game Bar. Let's talk about that next. Now, before we get in too deep, another way and perhaps an easier way of accessing Command Center and the Xbox Game Bar is by pressing the Command Center button on your Ally X. They've swapped the position of these buttons around on the new ROG Xbox Ally and Ally X devices, so make sure you know which button is which. Anyways, if you used Command Center before, you're going to notice that it looks a little bit different. If yours looks the same as before, you probably didn't enable the new look while updating Armoury Crate. Don't worry, you can still enable this through Armoury Crate, and I'll go through it when we get to that segment. So yeah, Command Center is now integrated into the Xbox game bar, and once you open it, it's going to slide from the left side of the screen. At the top of the screen, you're going to have access to a row of different icons, and each of them do different things. Let's go through them one by one. The first tab you'll see is Command Center. On the left side, you're going to have access to settings for display brightness and volume. The very last button on the left side is the power button, which shows you power options. So if you want to shut down a system, put it to sleep, or reboot it, you can do that through here. Above the power button, you have another icon that kind of looks like a window with a pencil in it. And when you press the icon, you can customize the look of Command Center. Now, one of the most interesting changes they've made to Command Center since the new update is that they've given us access to horizontal widgets. You can see that I've already added in a bunch of them. I can remove them by tapping X in the top right corner of each of the widgets, and that will get rid of it. And if you want to add more widgets, you just need to find the sort of horizontal line that says add, and you just tap on it. You can see these are the ones that I've either removed or I haven't added to my Command Center widgets yet. So if I just tap on, for example, real-time monitor, it will get added to the rest of the horizontal widgets that I've got here. So I'll just go ahead and add the rest of them because they're actually quite handy and I tend to use them all the time. And by the way, you'll notice that I prefer to use the touch screen when I'm operating the Command Center and Xbox Game Bar. Controller works perfectly fine, so it's not like they don't work. It's just a matter of preference. So you choose whichever one you like. If we just go a little bit further down while still editing Command Center, you see we still got those boxed sort of toggle on-off options that we used to have in the old Command Center. They're still here. Some of them overlap with horizontal widgets. If you've already got the setting for, say, for example, control mode, you can then get rid of it as one of the boxes here. So yeah, it's good to have options of doing things in a different way, whichever one you prefer. And the rest of Command Center is pretty much the same. I mean, you just go through it, you decide which one you want to play around with. So LED brightness, I'd rather have that off. You can change resolution. This stuff is pretty much the same as before. Yeah, that's the new Command Center. It looks a little bit different, but functionality wise, it does exactly the same thing. Next, we're going to talk about the Xbox Game Bar. Now, the Xbox Game Bar is mostly designed to be used during gameplay, so a lot of the functions and settings that we're going to discuss here are here to help you navigate your device while you're in game. So tap on the house icon next to Command Center. From here, you can navigate different parts of the Xbox app and Xbox Game Bar. So for example, you can launch your recently played games or you can close them if you're currently in one game. For instance, you can see right now, I have Megabonk that I previously played on this device. And if I just tap on it, it's going to launch the game for me. Obviously, it's going to launch Steam first, and then it's going to launch the game. So it might take a little bit if you haven't got Steam open already. So you just got to be patient. So while I'm in game, I can open Game Bar, and if I tap home, I'll be taken back to the home screen of the Xbox app. I can also tap on library and it will take me to my library in Xbox app. So it's just easy ways of getting around this experience and finding your way around depending on what you want to do. There are some other options here as well. So if I press the X here next to Megabonk, that's just going to close the app for me. Other games that I can launch from here as well, they're just sitting on the Megabonk. So this is more like recently played games, so you can access them easily. And then at the bottom here, you got access to your apps. So Xbox, Steam, GOG, and Armoury Crate. And depending on which one you want to access, if I just tap on, for example, Steam, this will take me straight to Steam. So yeah, that's the Home tab, pretty straightforward. Next, we're going to talk about the Settings tab. This is where you can change the settings of Xbox Game Bar. Now, the very first one is mic on or off. You can play around with this depending on what you want. Next, you have access to your volume settings. So if I want to turn the volume up or down, I can do that here. You can also tap on the speaker here to mute the sound of your device. Next, you've got brightness settings. So I can turn it all the way down to dim the screen, or I can turn it all the way up to make it as bright as possible. I typically like to have it around 70 to 75%, so I'll just leave it there. Next, you've got show keyboard. So if I tap on this, my keyboard will come up. The next option is exit full screen experience. It's pretty self-explanatory. So if you want to access Windows desktop mode, this would be another way of doing that. Now, if you're in desktop mode and want to go back to full screen experience, you can simply just restart your device. It's going to take you back into the Xbox full screen experience mode. You can also just go into the Xbox app, and in the top right corner, you should have a little box that says press here to enter the Xbox full screen experience. If I tap on this button, I get three choices. The first one is to restart the device, like reboot it fully. It's going to give you a little bit of headroom when you do it that way, or you can just go start now and you won't have any performance changes. So really depends on what you want to do here. So back in full screen experience, let's bring up the game bar and go back into settings. The next option here is compact mode. Now, you might remember that we talked about compact mode back in the Xbox app settings. I did say it was going to come up again, but it's going to do something completely different. Compact mode here changes the way game bar is presented. Having it enabled gives you a much better experience on a handheld, as navigation is like more easily doable by using a controller, or even it's more touch friendly. So I highly recommend you keep it enabled when you're using the Xbox full screen experience. Now, just to showcase what it looks like if it's disabled, I'm going to disable it here. And after disabling it, if I press the command center button again, you can see things are a little bit different. You know, each tab is now, it's got its own little box and you can move it around and you can even pin it or whatever. It's an experience that's a little bit better on desktop. Like I said, in handheld mode, it's not really too easily navigational. If you've disabled it and you want to go back into compact mode, you just need to tap on the gear icon here and then enable compact mode, and it will go back to the way it was. Moving on, next is power. So you have access to some power options here. You can lock the screen, sign out, sleep, or even shut down the device entirely here. Next, you have access to your networks. So Wi-Fi settings are here. Bluetooth settings are next. I keep my Bluetooth off unless I need to use it. I have this feeling like it just constantly drains a bit of battery. I don't know why I think this, but it's just what I've got in mind, so that's what I do. Next is airplane mode. So if you just want to quickly go on airplane mode, you can tap on this here and it will put your device in airplane mode. At the very bottom of this settings page, we've got more settings. So let's talk about that. So under more settings and in general, the very first option is to give you some tips when you start a new game. I haven't personally seen anything yet, so I'm going to keep this enabled just to see what happens later on. The next option is for telling the device the app you're currently in is a game. This is helpful in situations where, you want to tell the device to treat certain apps like games. I haven't been able to figure out how this changes the behavior of the device, but if I had to guess, it would have something to do with battery consumption and power, and maybe even some key bindings. Next is game bar always opens to home in compact mode. Now, by enabling this, every time you open game bar, you'll be taken to the home tab when compact mode is enabled. But this is one of those options that I tend to change every now and again, depending on what I'm doing. So for instance, while working on this video, so when I was scripting and trying things out, I had to constantly open and close game bar to tweak and try different things. Having this option enabled made it kind of annoying to have to navigate back to where I was every time I opened game bar. And that's why I have it disabled at the moment. So what do I mean by this? Right now, we're under the general settings. If I get out of game bar and then open it again, I'll be taken right back to where I was before. The other side of things is that, I find out when I am playing games and, I'm not too worried about changing settings and stuff like that, I prefer to have this enabled because when I want to go to game bar, it's probably because I want to navigate to a different app, or I want to close the game that I'm in. So yeah, it just makes the experience a little bit smoother. It really depends on what you're doing. So I don't know, it's one of those settings that really changes depending on what's happening. Next, you have some options for notifications. Most are pretty straightforward here, and you can see I've set mine up in a way that, I should get the least amount of disruptions while I'm playing games. So that's everything to do with general settings. Next, we're going to talk about widgets. So the first couple of options here are for capturing and recording gameplay footage. I've turned off recording in the background because I think it affects performance. I am going to turn on show microphone recording notifications because I always want to know when the microphone is functioning. Next, you have access to audio to record settings. You can set it to what audio you want to record. So if you just want the game and your mic audio to be recorded, you can pick the first option, or if you want everything, including system sounds, pick the middle one. And if you don't want any audio in your recording, then pick the last one. Next, we have options for the Asus Command Center. Send notifications is pretty straightforward. Turn it on if you want notifications from Command Center. Knowing which app or game is in focus will help Command Center decide which options and settings to enable or disable, depending on what game or app you're using, and I recommend keeping this enabled. Show in widget menu is if you want to remove Command Center from Xbox Game Bar, so probably best to keep it enabled for ease of access. Next, we have settings for Microsoft Edge Game Assist. I'm going to talk about Game Assist a little bit more when we get to it because it does have its own tab, but essentially, if you want Edge to know what game you're playing so it can give you tips and tricks, then you want to keep this enabled here. Same thing goes for the next part, which is Xbox. Go through it and decide which settings you want to enable or disable and see which widgets you want to keep. I suggest keeping everything enabled for now so you can play around with everything first. Once you know what you like and you don't like, you can come back here and remove the widgets you don't want. And that's widgets. Next, we're going to discuss shortcuts. Now, this section gives you access to some of the shortcuts you can set on your device. Most of them are pretty straightforward, and I've only enabled the first two, so I can still access Game Bar during gameplay in a way that doesn't interfere with gameplay. If you're looking to use a keyboard with your ROG Ally X, make sure to have a look through the keyboard section and set things up to your liking. So that's shortcuts. Next, we're going to talk about personalization. It's very similar to the previous section. Your options here are pretty straightforward. So you can change the theme of your device to either light or dark, or you can set it so it follows your Windows settings. Although I wouldn't call this a theme, it's more like mode. You can also adjust the transparency of your pinned widgets. Just remember that you can't pin widgets when you're using compact mode, at least not right now. And lastly, you can also enable or disable animations when using the game bar. So that's everything to do with personalization. Next, we're going to talk about gaming features, and honestly, there isn't really much to say because at the moment, it doesn't actually allow for any settings adjustments, for me at least anyways. It just says that my system is DirectX 12 ready, which is nice, I guess. Next is the feedback section, and yeah, you can use the feedback section here to send feedback to Microsoft. So that's everything to do with more settings. Next, we're going to talk about Game Assist. Now, this is a nice little feature that's really helpful when it works. Essentially, it's meant to recognize the game you're currently playing to give you guidance and tips and tricks. It's been pretty inconsistent for me. Like, I've tried it with a few different games and it's recognized them every now and then again. So yeah, if the game gets recognized, Game Assist will look for guides online and gives you easy access to them. The only issue I have with it right now is that you have to keep going back into Game Bar to access it when you're in compact mode because you can't pin widgets right now. So if you're dead set on using this feature, you're gonna have to disable compact mode for Game Bar, or you could, just use your phone or something. The next tab is Gaming Copilot. This is another way to get some guidance when playing your game. You can even use the device's microphone to speak with Copilot and get help. From my testing, it works best with games that have been out for a while since there are more information about them already. You can tweak the settings as well by tapping the gear icon in the bottom left corner. Most of these settings are pretty straightforward, but the one thing I want to highlight here is capture settings. You may want to keep this option enabled, or perhaps you'd want to disable it based on how you feel about the device constantly taking screenshots of your screen and sharing it with Microsoft and Xbox. I like to keep that disabled. The next tab is Xbox Social. This is where you can find your online friends and create group chats and everything. If you've ever used an Xbox before, you'll be very familiar with the experience. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Next, we have our audio settings where you can change your audio output and levels. If you go into voice, you can do the same thing for audio input. Next, we have the capture tab. This is where you can take screenshots of your game or record your gameplay. If you tap See My Captures, you'll be able to view your previous pictures and videos. Next is the Performance tab. It gives you information about your device, so things like how your CPU and GPU are doing and what the FPS looks like. You can slightly adjust what you want to see here by making sure the Performance tab is highlighted and then tapping the select button, then going into options. You can use the same method to close widgets that you don't use. Just press on close. And lastly, we have our widgets tab. This is where you see a list of installed widgets, and you can also go into the widget store to get more widgets if you like. There are some interesting ones on here, but yeah, I didn't really see anything that I want to try out. So feel free to look through it and see what you like. All right, so that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about when it comes to Command Center and the Xbox Game Bar. Next, we're going to talk about Armoury Crate. So Armoury Crate has also had a little bit of a facelift, but nothing too deep has changed here. So yeah, when you first go into Armoury Crate, you're going to have access to your games and game platforms, which you can use for launching games and such. If we go into settings, most things are still the same. But yeah, it just looks a little bit neater and tidier, which is nice. I'm only going to touch on a few things here because, like I said, most settings are pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. The first one we're going to talk about is control mode. So tap on configure under control mode and then tap on configure again under gamepad mode. Here you can set controller shortcuts. I have one shortcut which I've added myself based on Xbox's suggestion, and that's for using the M1 button to act as my Xbox button. So if you also want to do this, here's how it's done. Tap M1 and untick set as secondary function. Then under primary function, tap on edit. Go into action and tap on Xbox button. Press B to go back, and now your M1 button is going to work as the Xbox button. Now this might seem a little bit redundant because the Xbox button essentially does the same thing as Command Center. So you can see if I press Command Center, it's going to open up Command Center and give me access to Xbox Game Bar. And if I press my Xbox button, it's going to take me straight to Game Bar, which is fine, but you know, it's not too different. The difference here is when you're in game with gamepad mode enabled, if you hold your Xbox button, which in my case is going to be the M1 button, you'll be taken straight to task view. You can of course just swipe up from the bottom of the screen to do this, but I mean, yeah, it's just another way of achieving the same thing. So, you know, if you just want to use a controller and you don't want to use a touchscreen, you have that option as well. Now back in Armoury Crate, the other thing I want to show you is how to change the layout of Command Center. So back in settings, go into general and then go into Command Center. From here, you can pick if you want the new gaming panel mode or if you want the classic grid. One more thing that's worth considering while in Armoury Crate settings is to synchronize power mode to Windows. So back in settings, go into performance, then go into more settings and make sure power mode synchronization is toggled on. It should help with optimizing performance and battery life. And lastly, make sure to check Update Center frequently, especially now during the early days of the Xbox full screen experience, and always keep your device up to date. So putting everything together, I just want to showcase for a couple of minutes here what this experience looks like when you're not messing around with settings and you're just playing games. So when you first go into full screen mode, you're presented with the games that you've recently played and you can jump back into it. So in my case, I'm just going to pick Ball Pit. I'll tap on it and I'll tap play and I'll wait for it to launch the game. Now, once I'm in game, I can bring up Command Center because I kind of want to have a look and monitor the performance of this device when it comes to this game. So I'm just going to go and find real-time monitor and I'll tap on row. And from here, I can move this around. I'm just going to leave it back up here if I want to have a bit more access to my game. Actually, I think that looks fine. So this is Ball Pit, like I said, and while I'm in game, I can again bring up the game bar. And maybe I want to see if there's any tips or tricks through the game assist option here, and you can see there's nothing's come up, so that doesn't really surprise me, seeing as this is a game that's just come out maybe like a week ago. So yeah, as you can see, I'm in a really intense battle in Ball Pit, trying to level up and do all this stuff, and it's a lot of fun. I think the game is really cool, and if you haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend you do this. It's very rewarding experience. But yeah, I can just constantly monitor what's happening here, and I can see the device is pulling like 24 watts to run this game at almost like 80 to 90. I'm doing 115 FPS now. So I think the mode that I've got it on is perfectly fine. But maybe I want to try and see if I can save a bit of battery. So if I put it on silent mode, so it's using a little bit less power, I wonder if that's going to bring down the FPS maybe down to 60 or something like that, and see how that works. I can also just open up Game Bar and go back into capture, and maybe I want to take a screenshot of my game, or if I want to just capture the last 30 seconds, I can tap on that as well. And once I've taken a screenshot or like recorded some footage or whatever, I can open up Game Bar again and this time go to see my captures, and yeah, it should show up here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the Xbox full screen experience. This has become a super long video, I hope you found it helpful. If you did, I would really appreciate if you help me out by pressing the like button. And if you're looking to see more guides on gaming handhelds like this, then be sure to subscribe to the channel. I hope you enjoyed the Xbox full screen experience on your ROG Ally devices. I'm gonna go and flash Bazite on my Ally X, and I'll see you in the next one.